Hello friends, and welcome to a Birdfruit tutorial video. Today I'm going to be talking about spooky action at a distance, a glitch that allows you to flip the switch in Misery Mire, the crystal switch in Misery Mire, without going into the room above it. So I'm going to start off by demonstrating it. So basically come in here, we've got the red switch up, down rather, then we hit that anti-fairy with the fire rod, and we can just move on right through, instead of having to do the normal thing. So, before I explain how to do it, I feel like I should explain a little bit about what spooky action at a distance is, how it works, and all of that. So to do this, we're going to go venture over toward Ice Palace. And for reasons. So you'll notice that... That's interesting. You'll notice that up in the right hand of my screen, I've got the coordinates. I also have another value. And that is the spooky, it's the thing that matters for spooky. In the HUD extras in the practice ROM, you can turn it on with the spooky setting. Basically what it is it is a variable that sort of controls the altitude of which things are at, because sometimes that's relevant for things like, you'll see, for example, we use the Samaria, we pick it up. It's now at 1-1, we throw it, it goes up a little bit, it goes back down to 0. Throw it in the water, it disappears. And most things before they use this value will reset it to 0 or whatever they need it to be before they mess with it. However, there is one notable exception, and that is the fire rod. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to demonstrate this, I'm going to set my ancilla value to be a little bit, altitude value a little bit above 0, so it's currently 19, which would be 25 in decimal. And basically what that does is it's controlling the altitude at which it thinks things are, and that includes the fire rod shot. So the fire rod has two parts. It basically has an initial, I should refill my magic. Initial part that just hits whatever it hits, and then it's got a bit that kind of lingers around if something walks into it. And for the initial part, this doesn't make a difference. But for the part that lingers, that's the ice rod. It will basically add that value to the top of the screen, to going up on the screen to determine where it actually hits. So you'll notice there, I hit the statue a little bit below the freezer, and it killed the freezer. So basically, I mean, this Ice Palace room is one example of such a case. I wonder if I can hit 2. Oh, I got 3. But yeah, so it's not very useful in Ice Palace. It's just kind of like, aha, this is a funny thing I can do. But in Misery Mire, there is a useful application of it. But how are we going to get it set? Well, that's where our loyal friend, the duck, comes in. As you'll notice, when I flute in a moment, as the duck picks us up, it starts setting our value. And as it drops us off, it's going to set our value again. So typically for this, you want a value somewhere around 8-7-ish, which I typically get to by just picking up the stone and, oops, walking into the portal right away. If you, let me, I guess, demonstrate a bit. Some people say to... Actually, I probably don't want the portal there. How am I going to do this? Oh, whatever. We'll worry about it later. By later, I mean, like, very soon. So some people suggest, you know, you could pick up the stone from the bottom. You know, that'll work. Or just, you know, like... But it works basically the same if you just pick up the stone as you walk into the portal. You don't go too far, though. I don't know, actually, I don't know how 7B will work. But, I'm gonna get this portal off of the ledge. But yeah, so basically all the setup is having this value 8 something-ish when you go into Misery Mire. Like we'll say 8C, sure. That should be fine. Now, I've already opened Misery Mire just so it'd be less flashy, and I've already gotten the big key and all that. But yeah, so basically what it comes down to is we need to maintain this value without accidentally resetting it. And there are a couple items that will reset it. Oops, I bonked. Notably, the boomerang, the red cane, and the powder. There might be... oh, the lamp. Yes, the lamp. So, in render, this means... well, in render, you might not have all those things. But in render, this is most useful if you obviously have the red cane... well, you have to have the red cane to finish Mire. And the fire rod. That's the word I'm looking for. Of course, the red cane is the Misery Mire dungeon item, right? And you need to use it in the basement. So how do we get around that? Well, that's where we can mess with things a little bit. So, if you kick up dust with a dash, that'll sort of take up the same slot that it would use to store the ancilla, the altitude of the ancilla, and when you use the red cane, it'll put it in a different slot and not mess this up. So if you see, if I do a dash and a place, I've got a block, and my value isn't messed up. You can also do things like shoot an arrow. Oops, wait, let me... like, that'll work. The thing I tend to have the most trouble with when doing this is I'm not very good at Mire. So sometimes I run low in health and I want to use the powder. Well, if I use the powder, that's going to mess everything up, right? So sometimes what I'll do is I'll shoot an arrow and then powder an anti-fairy or something like that. You know, whatever you need to do. I'm going to go ahead and flip the switch first because, well, that'll show off a couple things. First of all, don't use the boomerang to hit the switch or you'll regret it. I mean, unless you kick up dust first and are paying attention. But, if you're going to go north from this room, you want to use the fire rod to light the lamps. Not the lamp. Since the lamp will reset your value. Ooh, we got a compass, how exciting. Actually, yeah, I'm just gonna go this way. And yeah, so basically it's just a matter of don't mess up your value. And obviously, in the real game, you can't see, you know, what your value is at all times. But what you can do is know what will mess it up. So now I'm just going to demonstrate how this is useful. So we're going to need the red cane when we get to the basement. I'll go ahead and switch to that now. I'm going to go ahead and pick up the magic refill just for completeness sake. And I'll demonstrate some of the items resetting the value. I just don't want to mess it up while I'm in the middle of this dungeon. So once I do the thing, I will demonstrate that a bit. For this room, pick up the block, do a little dash before we place our block. If you don't have the boots, use the bow. Might even be able to do it with the ice rod. I'm not going to risk it right now. But use the bow, or there's probably some other things that work. But typically you'll have either the bow or the boots at least. And the important thing is remember to switch to the fire rod and don't keep the cane equipped and accidentally use it. I've definitely never done that. But then in this room, so we want to flip the crystal switch because the crystal switch is currently in the wrong state for us to move to the next room. Now the switch is a little bit above this spot where I am right now, which means if we hit that spike with the fire rod, it'll flip the switch. There we go. That demonstrates it. Because that distance is about the 8C distance that we have set. Crap, which way do we want it to be red, I believe, yeah. So when we come into this room, the way I line this up is I move right until I hit the line of blocks, and then up right a little bit. Or left until I hit the line of blocks, and then up left. But you can also just eyeball it. Basically, you want to hit one of the anti-fairies when they're around... I don't know how to do this. I don't know how to demonstrate this easily. Basically, you want to hit one of the anti-fairies when they're around here-ish. Around the 3rd or 4th block down. And what that will do is it will hit the switch up here. Which will let us get through. Which is useful, of course. And then in this room, you can do something similar. I believe you hit the... Well, you don't get hit by the anti-fairy. Bunny beam. You also don't switch to the bombs. If you hit the right torch here, that'll hit the switch. I don't usually bother with that because it doesn't save much time. But it is something you can do. Okay, so I promised I was going to demonstrate. So let's say I use the powder on the anti-fairy. Whoops, my value is 0. Well, that's no good. Now I can't... Now if I try the same thing again, on the torch here, nothing happens. So you can tell the switch is hit because it makes that little clicky sound and there's a little pause. So what if you do mess it up? Well, there is a backup strategy. And I'm going to demonstrate that a little bit. I'm not super good at it, so we'll see if I actually get it before I run out of magic. Basically, I want to reload this room so that the anti-fairies are stuck on the left. I think this is the same super tile. Yeah, so we've still got a problem. So I'm going to go back through this room as well. So we can reload the super tile. Okay, so our current value is 0. That's useless as far as mucking around with the fire rod. I'm not entirely sure how to usefully do stuff in this room if you mess it up. It's not too bad to just come up here and hit it. You don't have to, you know, bomb open the wall and all that. But this is where we notice something. If we throw this Mario block into the pit, it gets set to FF. Now that's too big for our usual strategy. Like if we hit it the normal spot, nothing happens. So you might be thinking, well, we just need to hit it down here, right? Well, it's also not quite that easy. Because unfortunately, when you're down here, the switch isn't loaded because it's too far up off screen. So the way people have found out to do this, and I'm going to go ahead and refill my magic, is if you fire rod dash such that you hit an anti-fairy and then dash up, you can do it. And it's tricky, and I don't always get it consistently. I happened to get it first try here. I don't know if I'll be able to pull it off again. Probably not, because the anti-fairies aren't going to be in the right spot. Yeah. So I'd have to go back through the room. But anyway, that's one thing you can do. You can also, I think, if you've messed it up before there, you can, you know, or toss a Mario block into the abyss up on the upper floor before you come down. But yeah, so I guess I'll just demonstrate some of the things that can mess it up. So we've got the lamp, obviously messes it up. I'm just gonna toss some Mario blocks in the air. This value is too small to do anything useful, I think. Let's find... Oh, no, we can't. It's just on anti-fairy here. It has to actually hit something for it to be useful. But yeah, so I found that often doing the little dash before the powder isn't good enough. Which is why I mentioned earlier I will use the bow, and then I'll maintain the value. If you dash before the boomerang, that works fine, but there's also no real reason to ever use the boomerang if you are paying attention and know you need to not use it. Likewise, the lamp. I mean, I guess you could, because if you don't have the fire rod, you can't do spooky at all. So it doesn't really matter. But I guess if you really want to save magic for the torch room on the upper floor, you could do that. I think those are the main things that affect the value. So it's powder, boomerang, lamp, red cane. Does an ice rod shot preserve a value? Let's find out. Okay, a nice rod shot does. So I guess that's another way we could do powder. We can time it. Yeah, there we go. Oh, it's sword beams. Sword beams also work. Not sure how well they work with powder. Oh, that seemed to work. Maybe there is a way to get it to work with the dash and the powder, but I've never done it. I wonder if you powder dash, if that'll work. No. Well, that wasn't a powder dash, first of all. Okay, so powder dash seems to work. That actually is interesting. I wonder... Oh, that messed it up, though. Maybe, okay, maybe the powder dash doesn't work. Anyway, all that to say, basically, key takeaway is, when you come into before you come into Mire, a mirror doesn't mess it up, by the way, so you can go check desert or whatever if you need to do that as well. Basically, when you flute into Mire, or into the desert area, you want to go a little bit further right before the duck goes off screen. So either, you know, kind of step under this block, or, you know, pick it up as you move into it. Go in the portal. Don't use the boomerang, powder, lamp, or red cane, unless you're being careful to use something else to put it in a different slot, like the boots, or a sword beam. Basically, I just try to only use the red cane for that one spot, and then I don't have to worry about messing it up other places. Sometimes I've forgotten and used the boomerang, though, and that's just sad time for all around. Or, well, maybe mostly just a sad time for me. And then I'm going to go ahead and flip the switch again just to demonstrate the first part. So come over here. If we flip the switch, then remember, don't use the lamp to light these, use the fire rod, or else stash before you use the lamp. Ow. And then as we go, actually, you know, I can go this way. I know what I'm doing, I promise. Don't use the powder, as tempting as that anti-fairy may be. Or at least be careful about it. So as we go in here in the basement, we want to, in this case, refill my magic, so I have enough to use the fire rod later. I'm going to switch to the red cane. I'm going to do a quick little dash or a boot kick up before I use the red cane. Like that, and I missed, but I'll just push the block, that's fine. Switch to the fire rod. I like to switch to the fire rod as soon as I can so that I don't accidentally use the red cane. But if you're paying attention better than I do, you should be fine. Walk up here in the third spot over. Hit the spike as it passes. You'll hear the little click and things will pause for a bit. Come over in this room. Walk to the left till you hit the red thing, then go diagonal up left and shoot your fire rod and hope for the best. And then in this room, you can hit the right torch from the left, or you can just go flip the switch yourself, normally. And then once you've done all that, there's no reason you can't powder this anti-fairy up here. So often I will just out of that. Before I go fight Vitreous, who is scary. I'm not actually going to bomb Vitreous right now, I'm just going to pretend I'm going to. Yeah, so that's been... Oh, Vitreous is flashy. I should leave before Vitreous flashes. But yeah, that's been a rambling attempt at some sort of explanation on something resembling spooky action at a distance. I hope I got everything right. Just play around with stuff a bit. You'll get to see what works, what doesn't. Stick it on the HUD in the practice ROM and, you know, play around with things. So thank you for watching, and I will see you all next time. Birdfruit out.